Welcome back to Indiana News Desk. Indiana's U.S. Senate race is expected to be among the most competitive in the country this year. Republicans are hoping to unseat Democrat Joe Donnelly, but they have to get through the primary first. The three Republican candidates met in their first debate this week. As Barbara Brosier reports, much of the focus was on their opponents.
Representative Todd Rokita set the tone for the debate from the beginning, taking aim at his opponents in his opening statement.
I also want to welcome my opponents tonight. Mike, welcome to the Republican Party. Luke, welcome back to Indiana.
The jabs didn't end there, although the target changed depending on the candidate. Representative Luke Messer focused his attention on Democratic Senator Joe Donnelly.
Joe Donnelly talks conservative when he's back home in Indiana, and he votes in Washington with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama 85% of the time.
And former state legislator Mike Braun called out both of his opponents for being Washington insiders.
Who do you think looks more like Donald Trump? It's an outsider that's done something in the real world. I think that picture is clear.
The discussion did shift to policy, where the candidates talked about the need to permanently repeal and replace Obamacare and what areas of federal spending they would reduce if elected. But the discussion got combative again when the moderator asked Rokita and Messer about their votes on a recent federal spending bill. It provided military funding, but increased the deficit. Messer voted for it, and Rokita voted against.
It's the choice our commander-in-chief gave us. And he could have been no clearer. He could have been no clearer about what he asked us to do.
Because that's what we sent him.
Braun also defended a vote he made while in the state legislature. He supported raising the gas tax to generate funding for infrastructure improvements.
I know in my own district, it was over 70 or 80% of my constituents said, fix the roads.
This week's debate is the first of several ahead of the May primary. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Barbara Brosier.
And with us now is political analyst Laura Wilson. Laura, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Why is this so important, this race?
Well, this is seen nationally as one of the most competitive Senate races. Obviously, for the Democrats, they want to be able to keep this seat. They need it. They're still a minority in the Senate. For the Republicans, they see this as one as they can flip. And you have two very strong competitors, arguably three strong competitors for the Republican primary that are all seeking to compete against Donnelly in the fall.
So the debate earlier this week, that they did share some ideas. Did the candidates really distinguish themselves among one another?
For a 90-minute debate, the biggest thing was the spending bill, and that was one of the things that Barbara mentioned. This was something that Messer had supported, that Rokita was against. Both of them are traditional Republican arguments, and Messer said, I supported it because the commander-in-chief wanted me to. It's support for the armed forces, whereas Rokita said, I'm not going to be voting for something that's going to raise the deficit and money we don't have. And of course, we had to mention Braun. He wasn't voting on that because he's not in Congress, but he said ultimately he would have sided with Rand Paul and also not voted in favor.
Now, what about money? Of course, spending money is a good indicator usually of who's going to win. What's the war chest like of these candidates?
It's neck to neck to neck. So we're looking at 2.4 for Rokita and Messer. Braun is just slightly behind with 2.3. A lot of it's his own money. But then if you're looking overall comparison, with Donnelly, he has about 5.3. So no doubt early money is helpful. They want to win the primary. That's the only way they go on to compete against Donnelly in November. But money is very important in this race.
So yeah, you mentioned Donnelly going forward. Are these candidates, I mean, first they've got to win the primary, but then what's it going to take for them to then actually move forward to try to defeat Donnelly?
Well, the challenge is going to be appealing to Republican voters in a relatively Republican state, so being pretty conservative in the primary and having that kind of ideology, but not going too far extreme, because they want to come back to the middle for the general. And Donnelly isn't a terribly liberal Democrat, which makes sense. He's representing the state of Indiana. So they're going to have to pivot themselves between May and November if they want to be successful.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.